A shrill, metallic alarm pierced the silence, jolting Dr. Elara Winters from what felt like a bottomless void. Her body felt heavy, her lungs struggling to draw air. She gasped, her chest heaving as she clawed at the translucent pod encasing her. It hissed open, releasing a cool, antiseptic mist. The light overhead was sterile and artificial, casting sharp shadows across a sleek, silvered chamber. Elara staggered out, her bare feet meeting the icy, polished floor. The room was lined with identical pods, many still sealed. Some held motionless figures, their faces pale and serene. Others were empty, their interiors dim and cold. A faint hum emanated from unseen machinery, vibrating through her bones. "Welcome, Dr. Winters," a deep, synthesized voice intoned. Elara spun around, her heart pounding. A holographic figure flickered into view, a tall alien with sharp features, iridescent blue skin, and elongated limbs. Its expression was impassive, its golden eyes unblinking. What are you?" Elara stammered, her voice hoarse. "I am Commander Zythar of the Concordium Preservation Bureau," the hologram replied. "You have been awakened as part of the Earth Preservation Initiative. Your species is a valued part of our catalog, and your compliance will ensure your survival." Elara's mind reeled. "Catalog? Compliance? What are you talking about? Where is everyone else?" Zythar tilted his head, his tone devoid of emotion. "The Earth you remember no longer exists in the form you knew. Humanity brought your planet to the brink of collapse. We intervened to preserve what could be salvaged. You, Dr. Winters, are a relic of a bygone era." She took a step back, her legs trembling. "No. This can't be happening. This was supposed to be a chance to rebuild, not this." "You misunderstand," Zythar said. "Rebuilding was deemed inefficient. Humanity's role is now limited to the domed habitats we have provided. You will live under our guidance, ensuring the planet remains stable." Before Elara could respond, the hologram disappeared, leaving her in stunned silence. The room felt colder, more suffocating. She looked at the pods again, her pulse quickening. She wasn't alone. Others like her were here, trapped, their futures stolen. The door to the chamber slid open with a faint hiss. 2 humanoid drones entered, their metal limbs moving with unnerving precision. They carried a bundle of clothing, which they placed on a nearby bench. Without a word, they turned and exited, leaving her alone once more. Elara hesitated before approaching the bench. The clothes were plain, a gray jumpsuit and sturdy boots. She dressed quickly, her mind racing. Questions swirled in her head. How much time had passed? What had become of Earth? And who else had survived? The door opened again, this time revealing a young man with disheveled hair and wary eyes. He wore the same gray jumpsuit. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, both uncertain. "You're awake," he finally said, his voice low. "Thank God. I thought I was the only one." "Who are you?" Elara asked, stepping toward him cautiously. Kai Morales. I think I was an engineer. Cryo records said I went under in 2130. You? Elara Winters. Biologist. I was part of the team trying to restore Earth's ecosystems before." She trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. "Before everything went wrong? Before humanity lost?" Kai nodded grimly. "Yeah. Same here. They woke me up a few hours ago, fed me some nonsense about how they'd preserved us. But it's all a lie." "What do you mean?" He gestured for her to follow him. "Come with me. I'll show you." The corridors were labyrinthine, all smooth metal and sharp angles. Drones glided silently past, ignoring them. Elara noticed panels displaying unfamiliar symbols and holograms of alien landscapes. Occasionally, a projection of Commander Zythar would appear, delivering impassive messages in a language she couldn't understand. Kai led her to a large observation window. Elara's breath caught in her throat. Outside, the Earth she knew was unrecognizable. Towering alien spires stretched toward a violet-tinged sky, their surfaces pulsating with light. The land below was a patchwork of biomes, some lush and vibrant, others barren and gray. Massive machines churned in the distance, reshaping the terrain. "This is what they call preservation," Kai said bitterly. "They've terraformed half the planet to suit their needs. The rest is just display pieces. A museum." Elara pressed her hands against the glass. "How could this happen? We were supposed to fix things, not let them take over." "They say they saved us," Kai said. "But they're just using us. We're like pets in a cage." Elara turned to him, her jaw set. "We can't accept this. There must be others, more of us. We have to find them." Kai hesitated. "I've seen a few others, but they're scared. These aliens, the Concordium, they don't mess around. If we step out of line..." "We don't have a choice," Elara interrupted. "If we don't fight back, we'll lose everything. We've already lost too much." Kai studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. But we need a plan." They spent the next few hours exploring the facility, avoiding drones and cameras as best they could. Along the way, they found other humans, most dazed and disoriented, still struggling to comprehend their new reality. Elara spoke to each one, her words steady and firm. "We can't let them dictate our future," she told them. "We need to stand together. Humanity has faced extinction before, and we survived. We'll survive this too." Some nodded hesitantly, while others remained skeptical. Still, a small group began to form around her, a nucleus of resistance. In a secluded corner of the facility, Kai managed to hack into a terminal, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. "I've got something," he whispered. "Records of other cryo chambers. Hundreds of them. Scattered across the planet." Elara leaned over his shoulder, her heart racing. "Can you unlock them?" "Not yet. The system's too secure. But if we can find a way to disable the main network..." A sharp, metallic clang echoed through the corridor. They froze. Moments later, a squad of drones appeared, their red optics glowing ominously. "Run!" Kai shouted. They bolted, weaving through the corridors as the drones pursued them relentlessly. Elara's lungs burned, but she pushed herself forward, adrenaline surging through her veins. Finally, they ducked into a maintenance shaft, the drones losing their trail. Elara leaned against the wall, gasping for air. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice grim but resolute. "We're going to take back our planet. No matter what it takes." Kai nodded, his expression hardening. "Then let's make them regret waking us up." The hidden maintenance shaft where Elara and Kai had taken refuge was dimly lit and reeked of stale air and oil. The hum of machinery vibrated through the walls, a constant reminder of the alien facility's relentless activity. Elara sat with her back against the cold metal, her mind racing as she processed their narrow escape. "They're faster than I expected," Kai muttered, peeking out of the vent they'd used to evade the drones. "We're going to need more than just luck to survive the next encounter. We'll need people," Elara said firmly. "More of us. More humans who aren't willing to live under their rule." Kai sighed, leaning back against the wall. "I don't know, Elara. Half the people we talked to today looked like they've already given up. The other half are too scared to do anything." "Fear is normal," Elara replied. "But we don't have the luxury of sitting still. Every second we wait, they tighten their grip on us." Kai smirked, though there was little humor in it. "You've got a real knack for motivational speeches, you know that?" Elara gave a small, tired smile. "It's not about speeches. It's about survival." Later that night, after hours of navigating the facility's maze-like corridors, they stumbled upon a vast storage room that had clearly been abandoned. It was filled with old equipment, much of it human-made. The sight of familiar tools and machinery sent a wave of bittersweet nostalgia through Elara. "This is it," she whispered. "This is where we start." Kai raised an eyebrow. "Start what, exactly? A rebellion with a broken generator and a pile of rusted junk?" Elara ignored his sarcasm, her eyes scanning the room. "We start building." Communications, defenses, whatever we need to survive and fight back. Kai sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he knelt by a terminal half buried under debris and began tinkering. If we're going to pull this off, we need intel. I'll see if I can patch into their network from here. While Kai worked, Alara ventured deeper into the storage room. She found old human uniforms, crates of tools, and even a few weapons, primitive compared to the Concordium's technology but better than nothing. Each discovery fueled her resolve. Hours later, Kai's voice broke the silence. Got something. Alara hurried over, kneeling beside him. On the flickering screen, a map of the facility appeared, along with a list of Concordium-controlled zones. But what caught her attention was a cluster of red dots marked unauthorized activity. What does that mean? She asked. Resistance, Kai said, a spark of hope in his voice. There's a group of humans operating underground. They've been sabotaging Concordium systems, small stuff, but it's something. Alara's heart raced. Can you pinpoint their location? Already did, Kai replied, grinning. They're not far from here. A section of the facility that's been decommissioned. Then we go to them, Alara said decisively. If they've been resisting, they'll know more about the Concordium's weaknesses. We need allies. The journey to the decommissioned zone was fraught with tension. Every corner they turned, every shadow that flickered, felt like a potential ambush. The facility seemed alive, its walls and floors pulsing faintly as though the structure itself was watching them. Finally, they reached an old maintenance corridor. The air was damp, and the walls were streaked with rust. At the far end, a makeshift barricade blocked their path. Beyond it, faint voices echoed. Alara approached cautiously. We're not here to fight, she called out. We're humans. We're looking for the resistance. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, holding a crude weapon fashioned from a piece of scrap metal. He was older, his face lined with weariness, but his eyes were sharp and suspicious. Who are you? He demanded. Alara Winters, she replied. This is Kai Morales. We've just been awakened, but we refuse to live under the Concordium's rule. We want to help. The man studied them for a long moment before lowering his weapon slightly. I'm Jonas. If you're serious about fighting back, you'd better come inside. Jonas led them into a sprawling underground hideout. It was a far cry from the sterile precision of the Concordium's facility. The air was thick with the smell of oil and sweat, and every surface was covered in makeshift equipment or salvaged supplies. A dozen people were scattered throughout, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. This is what's left of us, Jonas said, his voice heavy. We've been resisting for years, but it's like fighting a tidal wave with a bucket. Every time we sabotage one of their systems, they just repair it twice as fast. Alara stepped forward. That's why you need us. We have skills, knowledge, and most importantly, a map of this facility. Together, we can do more than just survive. We can strike where it hurts. Jonas frowned. What makes you think we can win? These aliens, they're smarter, stronger, and better equipped than we'll ever be. Alara met his gaze steadily. Because humanity has faced extinction before, and we've always found a way to endure. This isn't just about survival. It's about reclaiming our home. Jonas looked around at his people, then back at her. Finally, he nodded. All right. Let's see what you've got. Over the next several days, Alara and Kai worked tirelessly alongside the resistance. Kai shared the information he'd extracted from the Concordium systems, helping them identify weak points in the facility's infrastructure. Alara focused on morale, organizing training sessions and strategy meetings. One night, as the group gathered in a dimly lit corner of the hideout, Alara stood before them. The Concordium thinks we're broken, she said. They think we're too weak to fight back. But we have something they'll never understand, our will to fight for what's ours. Her words ignited a spark in the group. For the first time in years, the resistance began to believe that victory was possible. Their first mission was a bold one, to sabotage a power relay station that supplied energy to the Concordium's security systems. Jonas was skeptical, but Alara convinced him that it was worth the risk. The team moved under the cover of darkness, navigating the facility's labyrinthine corridors. Alara's heart pounded as they reached the relay station. Kai worked quickly, bypassing the alien security protocols with a mix of ingenuity and brute force. Almost there, he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. A sudden noise made Alara spin around. A patrol of drones was approaching fast. "We've got company!" she shouted. Jonas and the others leaped into action, using their crude weapons to hold the drones at bay. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Alara joined the fray, her movements fueled by adrenaline and desperation. "Kai, hurry!" she yelled. "Done!" he shouted back, pulling the final lever. The relay station erupted in a shower of sparks, and the facility's lights flickered before plunging into darkness. "Fall back!" Alara ordered. The group retreated into the shadows, their hearts racing. As they regrouped in the hideout, the atmosphere was electric with victory. "We did it," Jonas said, his voice filled with awe. "We actually did it." Alara smiled, though her mind was already racing ahead. This was only the beginning. The fight for Earth had truly begun. The aftermath of the power relay sabotage was both exhilarating and sobering. The Concordium's immediate response had been brutal, tightening patrols and deploying more drones throughout the facility. Alara knew their success had put a target on their backs, but she also saw something she hadn't before: hope in the eyes of the Resistance. In the dimly lit hideout, she gathered the group. A map of the facility was spread across a makeshift table, its surface scratched and worn. Kai leaned over it, pointing to a central area marked with alien symbols. "This," he said, "is their command hub. If we can infiltrate it and disable their main network, we'll cripple their control over the facility. But it's heavily guarded." Jonas, arms crossed, frowned. "That's suicide. The drones will rip us apart before we get close." Alara shook her head. "We don't have to fight them all. We just need a diversion to pull their attention elsewhere. A small team can slip through while the rest keep them occupied. And if we fail?" Jonas pressed. "We won't," Alara said firmly. Her gaze swept across the room. "This is our chance to do something real. If we succeed, we'll send a message, not just to the Concordium but to every human out there: we're still here, and we're fighting back." The room was silent for a moment before Jonas exhaled deeply. "All right. What's the plan?" The next day was a blur of preparation. Kai worked tirelessly, building makeshift EMP devices from scavenged parts. Alara coordinated with Jonas, dividing their forces into two teams, the diversionary group and the infiltration team. Every detail was scrutinized. They couldn't afford mistakes. As night fell, the hideout buzzed with quiet tension. Alara stood by the exit, tightening the straps on her gear. Jonas approached, his expression grim. "You sure about this?" he asked. Alara nodded. "We don't have a choice." He hesitated, then extended a hand. "Good luck." She shook it firmly. "See you on the other side." The operation began under the cover of darkness. Jonas led the diversionary team, launching a series of coordinated attacks on key Concordium outposts. Explosions lit up the night as drones scrambled to respond. Alara, Kai, and two others, Mara and Jace, used the chaos to slip toward the command hub. The corridors were eerily quiet, the usual hum of machinery replaced by the distant echoes of gunfire. Kai carried a small device emitting a low-frequency pulse to disrupt the Concordium's surveillance systems. Every step felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. "Almost there," Kai whispered as they approached the command hub's entrance. A pair of drones stood guard, their glowing optics scanning the corridor. Mara raised her makeshift weapon, but Alara stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. "Not yet," she said. "Let Kai do his thing." Kai crouched and activated a small EMP device. A faint whine filled the air, and the drones froze, their optics dimming. Alara motioned for the team to move quickly. They slipped past the inert machines and into the hub. The command hub was a cavernous room filled with alien consoles and holographic displays. A massive central column pulsed with light, its surface covered in shifting symbols. Kai's eyes widened as he took in the sight. "That's their core," he said. "If we can overload it, the entire network will go offline." "Then let's move," Elara urged. Kai hurried to one of the consoles, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Mara and Jace took up defensive positions near the entrance, their eyes scanning for any signs of movement. Elara stood by Kai, her nerves taut as a wire. "How long will this take?" she asked. "Not long if I can just..." Kai's words were cut off as the door slammed open, and a squad of drones poured in, their weapons glowing ominously. "Cover him!" Elara shouted, raising her own weapon. Mara and Jace opened fire, their crude guns unleashing a barrage of projectiles. Sparks flew as the drones returned fire, their energy blasts scorching the walls. Elara ducked behind a console, firing in controlled bursts to keep the drones at bay. "Kai, we're running out of time," she called out. "Almost there," he yelled back, sweat dripping down his face as he worked frantically. One of the drones broke through their line, advancing on Kai. Elara lunged forward, swinging a piece of metal with all her strength. The makeshift weapon connected with a satisfying crunch, sending the drone crashing to the floor. "Kai, now!" she shouted. "Got it!" he exclaimed, slamming his fist onto the console. The central column flickered, its light intensifying until it burst in a cascade of sparks. The drones froze, their optics dimming as the network collapsed. Elara turned to the team. "Fall back! Now!" The group raced through the corridors, the facility plunging into chaos around them. Without the central network, the drones were disoriented, their movements erratic. Explosions echoed in the distance as Jonas's team continued their diversionary attacks. As they neared the exit, Elara's calm crackled to life. "Elara, it's Jonas. We're pinned down. Need backup." Elara glanced at Kai, who nodded grimly. "Go. I'll get Mara and Jace out of here. Be careful," she said, then turned and sprinted toward Jonas's location. The scene she arrived at was chaos. Jonas and his team were trapped in a narrow corridor, exchanging fire with a squad of Concordium soldiers. These weren't drones, they were living aliens, their sleek armor reflecting the dim light. Elara dove into cover beside Jonas. "What's the situation?" "They've got us pinned," he said, his voice tight. "We can't hold them off much longer." Elara assessed the situation quickly. "I've got an idea. Cover me." Before Jonas could protest, she grabbed an EMP device and dashed forward, using the debris for cover. The soldiers spotted her and opened fire, their plasma bolts scorching the air around her. She reached a fallen piece of metal and hurled the device toward the soldiers. It detonated with a sharp crack, sending out a shockwave that disrupted their weapons and communications. "Now!" Elara shouted. Jonas and his team surged forward, overwhelming the disoriented soldiers with sheer determination. Within moments, the corridor was theirs. "Nice work," Jonas said, breathing heavily. "You've got guts, I'll give you that." Elara managed a tired smile. "Let's get out of here." By the time they returned to the hideout, the resistance was buzzing with energy. The operation had been a success. The Concordium's network was crippled, and their forces were in disarray. For the first time, the resistance had struck a blow that truly mattered. Elara stood before the group, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Today, we proved that we're not just survivors. We're fighters. The Concordium thought they could control us, but they were wrong. This is our planet, and we're taking it back." Cheers erupted, the sound echoing through the hideout. Elara allowed herself a moment of relief. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like they had a chance. As the crowd dispersed, Kai approached her. "So, what's next?" Elara looked at him, her eyes fierce with determination. "We keep fighting. Until Earth is ours again." The hideout buzzed with tension as the resistance prepared for their boldest mission yet. The network disruption had bought them time, but the Concordium would adapt quickly. Alara stood at the center of the room, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily on her shoulders. The gathered resistance fighters, battle-worn but determined, looked to her for leadership. "We've hit them hard," Alara began, her voice steady. "But it's not enough. The Concordium's central authority is housed in their citadel, a massive tower that controls this entire region. If we can take it down, we'll cripple their operations and give humanity a real chance to reclaim Earth." Jonas frowned, leaning on a rusted pipe. "And how exactly are we supposed to do that? The Citadel's defenses make the command hub look like a playground." Alara gestured to a holographic map Kai had projected. "The network disruption created a gap in their monitoring systems. Kai's been working to expand that vulnerability. If we time it right, we'll slip through their defenses before they can respond." Kai, seated at the terminal, didn't look up as he typed. "It's risky, but it's doable. The window will be small, 5, maybe 6 minutes before their backup systems kick in." Mara crossed her arms. "And once we're inside?" Alara pointed to the tower's base on the map. "The Citadel's main power core is located here. If we can overload it, the resulting chain reaction will destroy the structure." "Destroying it is one thing," Jonas said, his tone grim. "Getting out alive afterward is another." Alara met his gaze. "We'll make it. We have to." The journey to the Citadel was a perilous one. The team moved under cover of darkness, navigating the ruined streets that surrounded the tower. The once thriving city was now a haunting landscape of crumbled buildings and alien machinery, the remnants of humanity's past overshadowed by the Concordium's dominance. As they neared the Citadel, Kai activated a device that emitted a low-frequency pulse, disrupting the patrol drones in the area. "This'll keep them off us for a while," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it won't last long." Alara nodded, motioning for the group to move forward. The Citadel loomed above them, its spire piercing the violet sky like a spear. Its surface shimmered with alien energy, a constant reminder of the technological gulf between humanity and their oppressors. The team reached the base of the tower and crouched behind a pile of debris. Kai tapped his wrist device, scanning the area. "The entrance is just ahead. 2 guards fully armed." Mara grinned, hefting her makeshift weapon. "I'll take care of that." "Quietly," Alara emphasized. "We can't risk alerting them." Mara nodded, slipping into the shadows. Moments later, the faint sound of scuffling reached their ears, followed by silence. Mara reappeared, wiping her hands. "Clear." The team moved quickly, slipping into the Citadel's interior. The corridors were vast and sterile, illuminated by a cold, bluish light. Kai led the way, his wrist device guiding them toward the power core. The core chamber was an awe-inspiring sight. A massive crystalline structure pulsed with energy, its surface etched with alien symbols that shifted and glowed. The hum of raw power filled the air, vibrating through their bones. "This is it," Kai whispered, his eyes wide. "The heart of the beast." Alara turned to the group. "Kai, start the overload sequence. Jonas, Mara, keep watch. We can't let anyone interrupt." Kai approached the console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "This is more complex than I expected. Give me a minute." "You've got 2, Jonas said, positioning himself by the entrance. "Anything longer, and we're toast." Alara paced, her nerves taut. Every second felt like an eternity. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the Concordium was already aware of their presence. Her fears were confirmed when an alarm blared, its piercing tone reverberating through the chamber. Red lights flashed, and a synthesized voice spoke in the Concordium's alien tongue. "They know we're here!" Jonas shouted. Mara raised her weapon. "How much longer, Kai?" "Almost there!" he yelled, sweat dripping down his face. Drones swarmed into the chamber, their weapons firing bursts of energy. Mara and Jonas returned fire, their makeshift weapons barely holding them off. Alara joined the fray, her movements sharp and precise as she aimed for the drone's vulnerable joints. "We're outnumbered!" Jonas shouted. "We can't hold them much longer!" Kai's voice cut through the chaos. "Done! The overload is set! Then let's move!" Elara ordered. The team bolted from the chamber as the crystalline core began to glow brighter, its energy spiraling out of control. The corridors shook with the force of the impending explosion, pieces of the ceiling collapsing around them. The alarms grew louder, accompanied by a deep, ominous rumble. "Faster!" Elara yelled, adrenaline fueling her sprint. Behind them, the core chamber erupted in a blinding flash of light, the shockwave ripping through the citadel. They reached the exit just as the explosion consumed the base of the tower. The ground trembled violently, and the citadel began to collapse, its spire crumbling under its own weight. The team dove for cover as debris rained down around them. When the dust settled, the citadel was nothing more than a smoking ruin. Elara pushed herself to her feet, coughing as she surveyed the destruction. The once imposing tower was gone, its remains scattered across the landscape. "We did it," Mara said, her voice filled with awe. Jonas chuckled, despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "I can't believe we actually pulled it off." Elara turned to Kai, who was sitting on the ground, clutching his wrist device. "Kai, are you okay?" He nodded, a tired smile on his face. "Yeah. Just give me a minute." She helped him up, her gaze sweeping over the team. They were battered and bruised, but alive. And for the first time in years, humanity had struck a blow that truly mattered. As they made their way back to the hideout, the team was greeted by cheers from the resistance. Word of the Citadel's destruction had already spread, and the victory ignited a sense of hope that had long been absent. Elara stood before the group, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Today, we proved that the Concordium isn't invincible. We've taken the first step toward reclaiming our planet. But this is just the beginning. The fight isn't over, not until Earth is ours again." The room erupted in cheers, the sound reverberating through the walls. For the first time, the resistance felt like more than just a scattered group of survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with, united by a shared purpose. As the crowd began to disperse, Elara found a quiet corner to collect her thoughts. Kai approached her, his expression thoughtful. "You know this was just one battle," he said. "The Concordium will retaliate. They won't let this slide." "I know," Elara replied, her voice resolute. "But we'll be ready. We've shown them what we're capable of. And now, we've got momentum on our side." Kai nodded, a hint of a smile on his lips. "So, what's next?" Elara looked toward the horizon, where the faint glow of the destroyed citadel still lingered. "Next, we take back what's ours. Piece by piece, until Earth belongs to humanity again."